Wednesday, June 5th, 2024. If you could like to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to start the meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Yeah, looks like it's gonna start.
Sorry, but he's second on the dot, so.
Yeah.
With the-
If you guys are online, if you could mute your microphones until we get to that point of the meeting, please. Thank you. Brian, if we could have a roll call, please.
Mr. Auger.
Present.
Mr. Epping.
Present.
Mr. Galley.
Here.
Mr. Charles.
Here.
And Mr. Zurich.
Here.
Great, thank you. We apologize for the dim lights. We're apparently working on that, but it might just be a casual evening, so I appreciate your patience. Gentlemen, if we could have a review of the agenda.
If there's no additions or deletions, I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
We have motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is, the agenda is approved. So tonight we have a few different items on our agenda. The majority of it is new business. In a minute, we'll have a public comment situation or segment. We then have unfinished business. There's no unfinished business tonight. We'll jump right into new business. We have 4 items on the new business part of our meeting. What I'll do is I'll call each of the cases into the record, just read the case number, your name, your address, and what the application is. We'll then ask the applicant to come up to the lectern. If you could give us your name and address, and again, as Alan said, if you could sign in before you leave tonight. And then just very simply, just tell us what your application is about, what you're seeking to do at your property. Our board is particularly interested in what is unique about your situation with the property. Why is it unable to follow the ordinance? And then we'll go through that. We'll ask you some questions. At that point, we'll open it up to the public, either in the room or online, to come up. Again, if you come up to the lectern, if you could give us your name and address, and also sign in. At that point, we'll ask the applicant to come back up. We may ask you some more questions. Our goal is to understand your application as well as possible, and to understand the deviation in the ordinance, and then ultimately to make some type of a decision tonight. Before we get there, I will open it up for public comment. This is an opportunity for anybody in the audience or online who wants to, again, come up and speak on anything that's not on the agenda. So if you're here tonight to just inform the community or our board about anything that's not on the agenda, now would be the time for that.
Jim? I'd just like to say, last week or so, we had employee appreciation time, and I just want to comment to Brian on the great job that he's doing. I've been with 2 different building departments as building inspector, and our minutes, our agenda packets are the most complete that I've ever seen. And
I agree. Thank you, Brian. It's well appreciated. Keep the town in many, many ways running smoothly.
Keep it in check, yes.
So, thank you. Anybody else, any other comments for the board tonight? Hearing none, we'll close public comment. Again, we have no unfinished business tonight, so we'll move right into new business. The first case is case number 24-006, Timothy and Mary Herndon, petitioners requesting a 5-foot front yard setback variance, or 5-foot variance from the setback requirement, which is section 4.07D within our ordinance. This is for a property on the east side of Deerwood Road, south of Deer Cross Drive, parcel number 08091540005, and it's in the R1B single-family residential portion of our community. Mr. and Mrs. Herndon, are you in the audience tonight? Thank you. Again, just kind of walk us through what you're trying to accomplish on the lot and why we need that 5-foot variance.
We live in Maple Ridge Drive in Clarkston right now. This is a vacant lot in Deerwood development. This lot is a little bit unusual in that about a quarter of the way into the lot, there's a swale that runs left to right on the property. And in that swale, there's an elevation change of about 24 feet from the left to the right,
Okay,
which obviously you could deal with. But additional to that is the property slopes from the front to that swale, and it drops 14 feet.
okay,
And then after the swale, the property rises 18 feet. So you're in a situation where you have water drainage in 3 directions to that swale.
Okay.
So it's not really practical to build beyond it because of the significant slope, the amount of trees and dirt you'd have to remove. And you don't want to put it in the swale because obviously you'd have water running towards your house. So this is a request to generate space in front of that depression to build our house.
great, thank you. So to be clear, the ordinance in the R1B zoning district asks for or requires a 40-foot front setback. So it's not necessarily 40 foot from the road. There's an imaginary line there that's the right-of-way that is 14 or 15 foot from the edge of the road. Typically, from that point, it should be 40 foot back to the front of your house. You're asking for a 5-foot variance so that the home would be 35 foot from that right-of-way line as opposed to 40 foot.
Oh,
I mean, just so that
That's
we're
just a
we're clear.
summary.
Just a summary of what you're asking for is, so the neighbors
we
understand.
did
it.
request a 5-foot variance, but
Correct.
I guess our understanding at the time was that that setback was determined based by the edge of the road, not some
Well-
space from that. So
Well, the plan shows
in the
it.
sketch,
The
there
plan
it
shows-
shows.
Your drawing shows that 35 foot, so if this drawing works, it seems to
Yes,
be.
it does.
The drawing reflects what the variance is asking for, so I think
Okay.
you should be in good shape.
This is complicated by the fact that there's a development requirement of a 3,000 square foot minimum with the side entry garage. So it further limits the type of home you could design and place on that property.
And you're able to accomplish that. Right, Brian?
And I'll just point out that Mr. Herndon did submit some elevations that did make the packet, so if you wanna look at those, there are 3D images that I can show the board if they're
Okay.
interested. But-
Thank you.
And you did receive a letter from the developer basically signing off on it.
I was just going to read that or summarize that. So we did receive in our packets tonight a letter from Robert R. Jones Associates representing, I don't know if it represents all the homeowners association, but essentially summarizing that that this particular attorney's firm is in favor and actually recommends approval of this variance request. All right. Great. I can open up for public comment unless anybody has any questions right now for Mr. Herndon.
I do.
Jim?
There are, several ways to mitigate the extreme grade difference. For one thing, is this house gonna walk out?
Yes.
Okay. And looking at it, there's several of the homes on that side of the street are considerably lower than the side of than the actual road itself. Without any elevations on this drawing, it's difficult for me to assume, what your proposed grade is gonna be at the house.
Well, I did submit some 3D renderings of the home itself, if that's what
Now,
you're
that probably
referring to.
won't tell me what I wanna know, because I'm looking for comparison between the existing grade of the house, or existing grade of the property, and the proposed grade of the house. Another thing that tends to help is if you make a deeper basement.
Yes.
Is this basement deeper?
Well, currently, as it's being designed, the basement is 11 feet deep.
Okay, that will help. You really can't push this house much farther back because of the swale that runs through and therefore
Right.
obviously drains properties to the north, so you got a natural drainage route there that you really can't disturb.
Right.
So like I said, if without proposed grades, I can only assume that the house will be a couple of feet below the curb line. And then with the 11-foot basement, you've done everything that you can possibly do to get that walkout elevation down to close to natural grade at the southeast corner of the building.
That's about right. That's at the midpoint of that property, the walkout would be at the grade of of the swale.
Yeah, so
It
you're actually
continues to
you're actually
fall
gonna
off
be
further,
filling at
but-
the southeast corner though.
Right,
Yeah, I don't see any way around it, given the grades that are on the plan.
right.
Thank you.
Brian, any thoughts or questions?
Not really anything additional to what Jim said and what the petitioner has spoken about. And just to clarify, that letter's from the developer of Deerwood?
I believe they're the HOA or HOA management company,
Okay,
but I'm not sure exactly.
I think, Robert Jones was one of the original developers of the Deerwood,
okay,
and he passed last fall, and his surviving widow has taken over the company, and these are part of the properties that she's marketing as part of her estate, I believe, so.
okay. And I assume the Deerwood Homeowners Association is intact, so his plans and stuff are submitted to the association and approved?
The Manors, yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay, I have nothing further.
Ken?
I have nothing at this time besides hearing from the public.
I spent a lot of time up there at the end of the street. There's 3 other homes being built right now.
Yes.
And we have not had a variance request from anybody in the Manors as long as I've been on this board. And I've been on a long time.
Mhm.
Each one of these lots is an individual lot. There's nothing uncharacteristic about this lot that isn't on every other lot in that subdivision. I don't see any practical difficulty here. By the time you dig that basement and regrade that lot, that swale is gonna go someplace else. You're gonna redirect that swale because you're gonna be grading the back of that lot. You're gonna be cutting trees, you're gonna have to. Even if you put a deeper foundation on the southeast corner before you pour your basement, you're still better off. If you move the house back even further than what the 40-foot front variance is, I think it'd fit on the lot even better. Your driveway may be going downhill a little bit, but you have lots of alternatives on this lot. It's a beautiful sloped lot. It's a beautiful area up there.
I respect your
And I-
opinion.
And I
We-
appreciate the topo because
Yep.
sometimes people request things and don't provide topos, and
Right.
this is a very good topo. Thank you.
We're working with Keep Engineering and an architect, and I'm going by what recommendations they made in terms of where we should site the house. So what you're suggesting may be a practical alternative, but this is what we're pursuing, and we think
Sure.
it's a better alternative for us. So.
Thank you. Mr. Herndon, let me ask the public, is there anybody in the public tonight that has a comment or a question with this? If you could come up to the lectern, give us your name and address, and let us know what you're thinking.
Good evening. My name is Craig Summers, 9024 Deerwood Road. The last new house built in the subdivision, basically, other than the ones that are under construction. And I have a couple of concerns. Number one, Mr. Herndon said that the minimum build is 3,000 square feet in the sub. It's not. It's 2,500 feet for a ranch and 2,700 for a two-story building. My house, the last new one built 4 years ago, was 2,500 square feet. That was one of my concerns. Number two, Robert Jones hasn't had anything to do with that subdivision other than selling his unsold lots for years. There's a homeowners association. We have roads management that's involved with the homeowners association. So what Robert Jones says is Robert Jones wants to sell those lots that he's got left that have been sitting there for the longest time. Very tough lots to build on as people that are familiar with the board, some of them are. My third concern is having been in city government for 28 years, I think once you start going down the slippery slope of changing the rules, right, it allows for other people. The lot next to my house that is not undeveloped or not developed yet, one of the few left, everybody there is gonna want a variance for that lot because of the same drop-off. At 40-foot and a 40-foot variance setback, the drop-off for that lot is unbelievable. It's a 2-acre lot, and it's probably gonna cost several $100,000 extra to bring in the dirt and do the things to build the kind of house that people wanna do. So those are some of the concerns that we have, and then if you're familiar with our sub, the houses that are gonna be next to these houses, like my house is probably a good 100-foot back from the road.
Right.
So is the neighbor, one south of mine. The next neighbor's not quite that far back. But I'm just concerned that if we start going that way and we start doing that, I think we'd have a problem. And I'm not sure if anybody from we have the homeowners board has a group that approves plans and would sign off on certain things like a variance, a setback. And my guess is that they wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
My guess is they're probably waiting to hear from this board before they, say anything, but maybe somebody's online or something to talk. But those are my concerns, so.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Summers. I agree with you. It seems like based on our discussion that the letter from Mrs. Jones, Carol Jones, does seem to be representing the seller as opposed to the HOA, that we read it more closely. As it relates to setting precedents, our board, the Zoning Board of Appeals for the township, is really charged with looking at each individual lot and any particular difficulties or practical difficulties, as Mr. Auger points out, on a case-by-case basis. So where I understand the concept of setting precedent, really very specifically, the zoning board does not set precedent. Each and every lot, if every single lot in this neighborhood came through, we would look at each one individually based on the hardship or the needs or the peculiarities of that lot as opposed to what happened next door. But I certainly understand where you're coming from on that. With that, is there anybody else in the audience tonight that would like to speak on this case?
There's a lady behind Brian.
Oh, I didn't see you.
Hi,
How are
I'm
you?
Mary Herndon. I'm,
If you give us your name when you come up, just so it gets caught on the mic.
okay, I'm Mary Herndon, and we've built 5 different homes over the years, and we'd like to downsize from the one we're in now, and we've looked at this property. We've been looking for property for ages, and we found this property, and it's difficult. We think we know what we can do with it, and we've done this before several times, and it's only 5 feet. 5 feet is the size of an area rug. It's 5 feet. That's not very much, and that would allow us to do what we want to do. And we've got it all planned out, and it'll be a beautiful house, and it'll fit in the neighborhood. And we're excited about it, and we've been working on this. Now, the house the gentleman talked about, I actually talked to his wife. His wife came over and talked to us. Their houses are way back, up on a hill. It's a whole different situation. This lot, you go walk a little bit, and it, boom, goes down. And it's not, there's so many different unusual lots in there. They're all, really individual and really nice. And this one is individual, and it's been up for sale for a long time, so there's probably a reason for it, because it's gonna be hard to build on. But we think we know what we'd do with it, and it'd be really nice, and we're excited about it, and we're ready to get going. And, the people we've talked to so far have been really, for us.
Yeah.
So it's not like that gentleman's lot. That gentleman has a long driveway, goes way up, got tons of room. We had trouble even finding a house that we liked, because it has to be, can't be too deep, has to be a certain length, has to be a certain amount of footage. And that's why we couldn't just pick one out of a book. We had to have an actual architect work on it.
Sure.
Designer's working on it right now. So, and I think there were kind of general plans of what, we have going there. So,
Right.
we're looking at, we'd do a good job. We'd be an asset
Well,
to,
I
be an
appreciate,
asset to that neighborhood. We would.
100% agree with you, Mrs. Herndon. And to be clear again, as we're all residents of the township, we're thrilled when residents don't move out and invest in new homes. And so clearly, you know, everybody in the community is thrilled that people continue to build homes in Independence Township and continue to invest. So we're really not here to decide whether or not, you know, we want this home to be successful, we want you to be successful. What we're trying to do is understand this particular piece of property. 5 foot is not a large distance,
No,
but we
absolutely.
talk about variances of 6 inches, and so, you know, there are all sorts of different variances. Our job really is to try and understand, are there alternatives that allow all properties to stay within the ordinance? Our number one objective is to stay within the ordinance, and so that's what we're asking these questions for.
We discussed that with the professional people that we have working on it, and, you know, they think it would work perfect if we got that 5-foot variance.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the room that would like to speak on this case tonight? Is there anybody online that would like to speak on our first case? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Jim, I think you've been thinking of things, I've been hearing you whisper.
I'd like a clarification on that 3,000 square foot that you said is the square footage that is required by the Deerwood Association.
Right, I'm just going by the covenants as they're published. It's 2,500 for a single story and 3,000 for a 2-story.
Okay. If you made this house 45 feet deep, you'd have 2,880 square feet. And
Right.
you'd meet the ordinance by the 45-foot setback, and you would exceed
This
by
is
almost
a,
400 square feet.
This is a 2-story home. We have a son
This
that
is-
lives out of state, and when he visits, we have to have a place for him to stay,
So this is
so,
2-story with a walkout.
yes.
Is that
So we-
correct? There's
we feel
3,000
like
square
we-
feet for a 2-story?
He said 2,500 for,
2,500 for a single story, 3,000 for a 2-story. That's what the covenants say. Now, the gentleman seems to think that's different, but that's what we're going by, the covenants.
And typically, it's a 3-tier. If they did put the ranch at 25, most subdivisions have a 1.5 at 2,750, and then a 2-story at 3,000. I mean, in every sub I've built in, there's a 3-tier. So I'm not saying who's right and who's wrong, but there's no way to find out right now, I assume, Mr. Ottman?
no.
Alan, as a builder, isn't 50 feet awfully deep for a house?
It's not common, I'll say that. You know, I reviewed all 3 of the houses that are being built up there. The basements are basically poured up there. And there's nothing different about this lot than what's on those lots, other than the ravine that's pretty close to what, if they build it 50 foot deep and that, by the time you get done, anybody that's in construction knows this lot's gonna be regraded, restoked.
Well, you can't really do much with that swale though, since it takes water from the adjacent.
Are you talking about the one
From
behind
the
it?
north, water from the north is drained across the back of this lot.
Yeah, but by the time he gets done putting the walkout basement in, he's gonna be resloping that anyway. He
push
may
it
be
further
pushing
away.
it back into the woods.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not gonna, you can't build right next to a woods and have a ravine, have 11-foot walls and stuff and not take down trees and reslope it.
Yeah, I think
don't-
there's alternatives that could be happening here. In other words, if you kept the house at 40 feet, and even if you didn't go 50, if you went 48, you'd probably be 3,000 square feet.
Well, in my opinion, I think our job is not necessarily to analyze the HOA or to analyze the architecture, but I think your point to me, Jim, is there are alternatives. There's not a hardship here. It doesn't appear as though there's a hardship here that isn't essentially self-created either because of the architecture or, you know, there, different things perhaps could happen.
If
in
that
the
swale
same
was
neighborhood
15 feet to the west, it'd be a different story.
to the west, if it was closer to the house.
Yeah.
Well, I guess my thoughts personally are, I'm sorry, go ahead.
If it's a 2-story house, it's 3,000 square feet on 2 levels.
Yeah.
You got 3,264 on 1 level. 50 by 64? That's 3,264 square feet.
Well, Jim, again, I don't know that, you know, you build a 10,000 square foot home, I think that, in my opinion, isn't relevant to the point of, are there alternatives?
What I'm saying is, to build a home this size on a lot that has restrictions, I think is excessive.
Or maybe one way to say it is self-created.
Yeah, right. This is a 6,400 square foot house
No.
on you said it's two levels.
Are you counting the walkout as part of that square footage then? Is that
No,
what-
you said it's 2 stories plus a walkout.
Yeah, the second story is over the garage. It's not 2 complete stories.
So it's a ranch,
I gave them, it's a ranch with a
walkout basement.
walkout basement.
Okay, but it's not 2 stories then, it's a ranch
There
with a
is
walkout basement.
bump
Therefore, it
out,
only has to be 2,500 square
there's a
feet.
bump out over the garage area that's about 800 square feet that makes it classified as 2 stories. Now, you may say that it doesn't, great, but that's what we were told, it's a 2-story house, so.
We have a picture of it.
We sent you the renderings, you can see it, I mean, that's,
And we spent a lot of money getting those renderings done.
If it has bedrooms upstairs, that's a two-story house.
Yeah, there are bedrooms upstairs?
on,
Two
you
bedrooms.
can't
Two
see it on
bedrooms?
this end. In the other end, there's a bump out above the garage that is, it's like a guest suite, basically,
Sure.
on the other end of the house. There, you can see the bump out. That's
Yeah.
the only second story that there is, and that's for like a guest suite.
It still qualifies for a 2-story house.
Right, that's what we were told. So that's, we were going by the 3,000 square feet because of that, that it qualified as a 2-story house.
Well, kind of to your point, Jim, I guess the question is this a ravine that's 30 feet deep on a property that's that wide, a natural feature that would affect your building envelope? I mean, I personally think it's a hardship, but I'm just one person. I mean, that's an extreme elevation change on a lot. As a board, we've approved elevation changes of far less than that on, you know, many different occasions over the years. I mean, I'm looking at it as a simple fact, is it a hardship or not?
And Brian, I agree with you from the point of view of that's how I believe we should be looking at it, not the architecture, not the size of how big or how small it is, but is there, you know, with a reasonable house in that neighborhood that has size restrictions, is that a hardship that would warrant a variance from the ordinance?
I mean, that's exactly, I'm just looking at it as what I feel our job scope is.
Okay, thank you.
Um, I'm looking at the elevation at the southwest corner. It's 1,194. And if you go to the rear corner at the back, it's 1,180. You've got about a 14-foot difference with 11-foot basement. You've got no problem on this lot. Put a retainer wall at the back. Even lowering the house down would benefit. We don't know what the finished floor grade is, but even if you lower the house down in grade, a lot of those houses, when you're on Deerwood Drive, a lot of the second floors are level with the road on Deerwood Drive. When you drive down the street and take a look at what people have done, they're creative, working with these.
That's
It's a
why I-
creative subdivision.
That's why I said without elevations, proposed grades, it's difficult to tell, because if you look at the topo, it's basically flat from the road to the entrance to the garage,
Exactly.
which could easily go down 3 or 4 feet.
Slope it down, the front yard could slope.
Oh, yeah,
down.
all the houses on that side of the street, farther to the south, are like that.
Sure.
When you drive down there and look at them, they're lower.
It's just one more quick point about this survey. What's misrepresenting about the square footage that Mr. Shaw brought up, that's the building envelope that you're looking at. You saw that rendering from the petitioners, the house bumps in and out. So that box we're looking at is the maximum
That's the envelope.
That, I don't know if you can pull that up again, Brian, but I'm sure the whole house doesn't stick over 5 feet. It's probably just,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
it's front porch and the garage, and then it tears back. So really, it's kind of just the garage side that comes out over. So that box that the engineer drew
What-
is the maximum line of the house. It's not the
Yeah.
actual
Are we
dimensions
looking
of
at the
house.
front elevation?
So the square foot, you can't figure out the square footage
Yeah.
based on that box.
No,
So-
you can't.
Is the far left, is that the garage?
That's the front of the house,
Yeah,
not the
but is
garage
that-
side.
But at the far left of that picture, that
That's the
projects
garage.
out more than what the house does on our site plan.
No, no, it doesn't.
Or no, it's not the garage,
Why?
actually. It's just the one room that sticks out, the front porch
Can
and
we
the
have a
one room.
site plan in here? We'll be right with you, Mr.
But he says it's over the garage, and the garage is 22 by 32, and it sets at the rear house line, not at the front.
It is, that is,
Yeah.
that is there.
The porch and the room next to
Okay.
it are the only things that are out at the front setback.
What's misleading is the southwest corner of this drawing that shows it as house. It's really not.
Okay.
Over there by the little pillars are.
Mr.
I-
Herndon?
Yeah, I don't know if it makes a difference or not, but we're going from a much larger house with a lot of rock walls and a lot of yard work and a lot of everything. And we're old, and we want to downsize, and we want less maintenance. And maybe if we were 20 years younger, we could take that house and put it way in the back and have the long driveway that you have to worry about shoveling in the winter. But we don't want that.
We appreciate that. We're not able to consider that, but I understand what you're saying.
Oh,
And we're
okay.
not asking you to put it way in the back, we're just saying, should it be
Mhm.
5 foot further back? So it's really that, as you said, it's just a short distance, just 5 foot, so.
Okay,
So that's
thank
what
you.
we're trying to decide. Gentlemen, we've kind of gone around in different good discussions here in terms of hardship, in terms of the accuracy of the plan. We certainly could ask for more information. We've heard some views and thoughtful feedback from everybody here. Is there any questions, or how do we start to move this forward in one direction or another?
I'm starting to lean towards the request. And basically, like we're saying, each lot would have to come before this board to get approval. So, the comment about it, opening up a can of worms for future builds, I'm not sure if that's a true statement. And I kind of like the idea that if you could leave the ravine as much as possible the way it was in its natural state, I think there's a benefit there. I think reworking the lot, you probably could. I don't see why not, but you leave it close to the way, Mother Nature created it. I guess I don't have a problem with the 5 foot.
Thank you, Ken. Alan, Jim, Brian?
The only comment I'll say is I'm opposed to it. We've never had anything come before us out of Deerwood Manors. I think this is a homeowner's problem they've caused themselves. They could not, if we get an actual plan, they could change that front bump out, get it back 5 feet. Maybe come out in front of the garage and make the room a little bigger. I'm not designing the house for them or anything else. I just, I think it's a beautiful lot, and I think that with a landscape designer, they could come up with something very creative. They've got a big problem with the backyard as it is. And anybody that's done construction knows this site is gonna be disturbed. You're not gonna keep these topos. Be realistic. Look at it in the right perspective. That's all I got to say.
Second.
Just a minute, please. Jim, Brian, any other comments?
No.
Mr.
I just
Herndon?
wanted to make one more comment. I appreciate all your learned ideas about what should happen with this lot. We're trying to build a house that we want to live in, not what somebody else thinks they can put. We're not trying to defer to the property. We're trying to put a house that we want to live in on that property. So that bump out that you want to reduce was already reduced 4 feet from what our original plan was. We started at 55 feet with our original plan of the house that we want to live in. As far as reducing it and lowering it in the property, Sure, you could do that. That's what we have now where we live. We're about 8 feet below the road level. But you'd be staring at a hill behind you that's 18 feet high, and we don't want to stare at the back of a hill. So what we're requesting is trying to accommodate the property and our needs as homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there somebody online
Was that a-
trying to talk?
Was that we're,
Public comment done.
sir, we're done with public comment now. We closed public comment and we brought it back up. Brian, was that someone online that,
There's somebody else that logged in. So,
gentlemen, does anybody have a motion, or our choices are to approve, deny, or postpone for additional information?
Just one quick question for the petitioners. Are the visual references we're looking at accurate representation of what's going to be built? Mostly?
Yes, we have, this was done by a local architect firm, DS Architects, and our intention is to move forward with the home design based on this 3D rendering, so yes.
Okay. I guess I'll make a motion, Chair, and see where it goes to try and move it forward. I'll make a motion, case number 24-006, petitioners Timothy and Mary Herndon requesting a 5-foot front yard setback variance from section 4.07, table 4.07, in order to construct a new home. I'll motion that we approve the request, citing the highly unusual elevation changes through the lot with almost a 40-foot elevation difference front to back, creating a very difficult building envelope in order to try and keep the natural drainage on the lot and the neighbors' properties also using that natural drainage. That's it.
We have a motion. Do we have support?
I'll support it.
We have motion and we have supported. Brian, would you consider, in addition to your motion, to request or require the applicant to have the building staked, the corner staked, to ensure that if it is granted a variance, that it falls within those conditions?
Yes.
Placement verification.
How do we-
Placement verification?
Placement verification, how much cleaner is that? Do you support the
Yes.
amendment? We have a motion and support. Is there any discussion? Brian, if we could have roll call, please?
Mr. Auger?
No,
Mr.
and for
Epping?
all the reasons that I've stated.
Mr. Epping?
Yes.
Mr. Galley?
Yes.
Mr. Charles?
No.
Mr. Zurich?
Yes.
Motion passes. Mr. Herndon, Mrs. Herndon, if you could continue to work with the building department,
Whole can of worms.
continue to work with the building department and through your permitting and all your approvals, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Calling the second case, case number 24-007, Chris Jones, petitioner, requesting a 12-foot a 12-foot rear yard setback variance from section 4.06D in order to construct a new home on the west side of Klaus Drive, north of Hillview Shores, parcel number 0801426010 in the R1A single-family residential. Again, it's a 12-foot variance at the rear yard. Good evening.
How you doing? Chris Jones,
April Jones.
Good evening.
for Clias Road. Doesn't have an address yet.
Right.
What we're trying to do is just build a simple, single-family home here. The property does have some wetlands on the property. We've done a lot of homework on where we can place this septic field without interfering with the lake stream, the wetlands, the pump house, the setbacks from the side yard and the rear. And the hardship is really trying to come up with a size of a first floor that we can work with that's reasonable to be conforming to the rest of the neighborhood. We feel like we can, with this plan here, we can build something that will be very conforming to the rest of the neighborhood, design-wise. It will be 2-story.
Yeah, I'll say the only thing I would add is we did do some, I'm gonna probably not call it right, soil borings, and we're working with an engineering firm to design the septic field, and they've kind of given us the guidance that that septic field location is pretty much the only spot for it on the property, which kind of forces us to put the house where it is, which again is kind of what's causing that rear yard like variance request.
So the septic field would be in the front yard.
Correct.
The home is really tucked to the
Back.
side, to the east,
Correct.
and then further to the
Yep.
back.
And right behind the property, if I'm gonna use those words right, is a township pump house or some kind of pump house. I guess there's nobody directly living behind the house. Is that what it is? Okay, sorry.
So it's I guess what could be described as a very unusual shaped property. It actually has quite a long tail
Yeah,
to it, but
goes
that's
that way,
mostly
yep.
wetland.
Correct.
Yes.
You're requesting a variance, a rear yard variance in this zoning district. The rear setback is required to be 50 foot. You're asking for a 12-foot variance from that, or relief from that, which would put the home 38 foot from the rear of that kind of shallow front yard, or parallel with the street, obviously not from that far eastern portion.
Yeah. And the only thing that it would be affecting is being slightly closer to the well, but, I mean, no one lives back there, and we wouldn't be disrupting anything.
So that's township-owned property behind it, Mr.
It
Robin?
is,
That's the pump house for the community's water system?
yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. Brian, the letter that the applicant submitted talked about a few different additional variances that we didn't list, and I'm assuming they aren't technically variances or something that's needed. There was the idea of the deck and a setback to a natural feature setback.
Yeah, so the natural feature setback is approved administratively. We have to go through a set of criteria that basically determines whether or not it's in the best public interest. In this scenario with a retaining wall, typically those are approved for deck posts, retaining walls, things like that, that would not adversely affect the wetland itself. So in this scenario, it's likely that we would approve it administratively as part of the building permit process.
Okay. And the deck, just as you said, the deck would essentially be posts as opposed to a structure being built there
Yeah,
with a
correct.
foundation. Okay. So the only variance that's being requested tonight, or has been advertised and requested tonight, is that 12-foot rear yard
Yes.
difference. All right. Alan, do we want to start down at that end tonight, or with this case number
Okay.
2?
The driveway that's on the, why don't you, one of you come back to the podium, please? The driveway that's on the east side of your property that goes back, is that township property?
Yes.
Correct.
Have you checked with the township to see if you could get an easement on that to enter to your property?
I have not, but we did think about that, but the problem is still the way the house has to tuck so close to the side. I then would have to put all the driveway as almost like a turnaround spot behind the house. Because that's only like 5 feet off the driveway right now.
Off that easement line?
Yeah, so
And
we're
we were
already
concerned about, yeah, then
so tight, I mean,
there'd be no parking.
5 feet, you wouldn't even be able to turn into a garage or anything.
Is the pump house behind you or beside you to the west?
It's confusing because the way the property is shaped, in this situation, it's gonna be behind the house, even though the house does
You can kind of see
dogleg
there
to the
that
left.
way, that like building and then
So that,
top.
Your deck is going to be looking essentially straight at that pump house,
Correct.
Right.
Pretty much, yep.
kind of perpendicular right to the street.
mhm.
We had a similar case like this come before us before. Has your engineer talked to the health department about a septic system and a design for it?
Yeah,
Yep, and we did submit those, and we did, again, I'm sorry, I'm not a septic person, but we did the better septic field that has the
Engineer.
different chambers. It is an engineered field. We have been working with Powell Engineering on it.
Okay.
And so we,
And you know the cost of that?
We do.
Okay, all right.
It's not cheap.
yes.
But we're trying to do the best scenario for
Yeah.
it because we know it's a difficult
Correct.
Well, I
kind of
know-
situation.
I know when you're attached to a wetlands and you have a piece of property, I know that they have to allow you one entranceway through a wetlands. They can't landlock it, and with your septic taking your whole front yard, I can see that. On this particular case, I would hope that you would contact the township and see if you could use that as an easement and have a turnaround. It's not a heavily traveled driveway, so
It's not,
it
no.
would be an asset to them if it was paved that short distance. And it would save you guys a tremendous expense on the other side of the house.
Putting it on the other
On the
side.
other
Yeah, and then come back out of the garage and head out to the street.
Right.
The street's in bad enough shape as it is.
You're right.
That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Ken?
I don't have any comments. Is there anybody from the public?
Well, let's go down this side and
Yeah.
then we'll open up to the board. Hang
Yes.
on. We'll get to the public in just 1 minute. Jim?
The drawing shows a 50-foot radius around a well.
Yes, sir.
It's got public water, got a pump house. Don't they have public water? What is that circle?
The one in the upper right corner?
Yes.
I think that's the, is that the
Those well
well? That's the
locations.
well location.
I'm sorry?
The well location, I believe.
Yeah, but they have public water here. There's a well house behind it.
Behind it, yeah.
The neighborhood has public
The
water.
neighborhood has public water.
And I believe it's connected to Orion as a backup in
Yeah, I think
case
so too, yeah.
something happens
It
there.
is.
Yeah, through Heather.
Yeah, it's Orion's.
So why is there a well here?
This-
'Cause you don't need one.
There's a hydrant in front of the house next to you to the east or northeast.
Is there an old existing
Is-
well on the property? Or no?
There's
think
not,
they-
it's vacant right now, so.
Yeah.
The other question that I have is, has this been approved by the Oakland County Health Department?
It has been submitted, we do not have a response yet.
Under normal circumstances, they will require a replacement area for a septic field. There
Oh, what?
obviously isn't one in this particular case, but since it's only a two-bedroom home, they may be making some adjustments. I mean, I'd feel more comfortable if you had a permit, if they'd approved
On
it.
the septic portion,
Yeah, because
So we do fall in compliance with
the septic
all
field,
the
I believe, is
septic.
in compliance, yeah.
Everything, so we didn't have to ask for a variance on the septic because
well,
we,
you don't ask for variances from the Oakland County Health Department.
okay,
They're either
You can
approve it
go
or
to
they
their
don't.
appeals board,
Oh, that's
Sure.
what it is, okay.
okay.
and, but normally, obviously, you know, you got a 750 square foot septic field with a 1,500 foot tank and you're obviously gonna dose the tank, dose the field with the pumping chamber.
Right.
I think basically the plan has done everything that you possibly can, given the configuration of the lot, the location of the wetlands and things of that nature. The only reservation that I have would be approval by the Oakland County Health Department for a septic field without a replacement area. Because there really is no place to replace this field.
Mm.
Well, if they don't get a permit, they can't build. They
That's
can't get a
correct.
Building permit, so the variance has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, you're correct. If you can't, if they
Correct.
don't
If
approve
Oakland
it,
County says no, we're done.
I'm actually, I'm doing a perk on Duck Lake, I think, next week, and the esteemed Keith engineering firm told me that if it was plotted before a certain date, you don't need to show reserve, because this is a small lot scenario, and I believe he said 1990, but I
Well,
could be misquoting that. but-
this was developed long before 1990.
Long,
So if
long
it
before
is-
that.
Hillview Station's been around a long
If
time.
it is predating that date, and don't quote me on the date, I could very well be wrong, but I think I remember him
Well,
saying.
Dave
somewhere
knows
in
it,
the
Dave
90s.
knows his stuff.
Yeah, if it's plotted before then, reserve is
It
not
could very
required.
well be.
Yeah.
Al?
About 2 years ago, we had a case on Bronco Court come before us on, next to two canals. And Oakland County Health Department approved the septic field in the front yard with yearly inspections
Okay,
on that one, and there's no reserve field on that one.
okay,
And that's on two canals.
yeah.
Right in the corner
Yeah.
there. And I think the point is well taken, is
Yeah.
our board, it can only look at that variance if the Oakland County doesn't permit it. The potential variance becomes irrelevant.
And then just adding to my comment, the variance really affects nobody except for the township pump house. If the engineer did put a well on there by mistake, he might not have known there was city water available, so it might just be a mistake, so
Well, this drawing
that's all.
is not drawn by an engineer.
It's drawn by Powell Engineering.
Mhm.
That's stamped.
PE jam, job.
Well, Jim, as we go through that, let's open it up to public comment. It sounds like there's someone online that would like to speak, sir?
Yes, yes. My name is Mike. I own the property directly across the street from the home.
Mike, could you give us your last name too, just so we have it in the minutes correctly?
And
Yes, Mike Scoopin. I own 9780 Clace Road, directly across from the facing property.
Thank you.
So I have a couple questions here. One, if we look at the demographic of the entire neighborhood, I do not believe that there is another two-bedroom home within the entire neighborhood, let alone a two-bedroom home on a crawl space. So my concern is that with him building a two-bedroom home on this property, that it kind of more or less devalues our neighborhood as a whole with all the properties in there. Because, as you guys know, that Heather, our subdivision is taxed to Heather Lakes, which has much larger homes than one we have right now. I don't think there is a single home in our neighborhood that is a two-bedroom, one-bath on a crawl. And forgive me if I might be mistaken, but I walk and I'm very familiar with my subdivision. I don't think there's a single-family home like this right now. So this home would be unique to one of one, versus an entire neighborhood that's more conformed to what the whole neighborhood is.
Appreciate what you're saying. That really is not a factor that we consider. We're a zoning board of appeals, so we're really looking at unique nature and self-created hardships that may be associated with this property. We're really not charged with architecture or the size of the home. The township does not have minimum standards. Some HOAs may, but we can't get involved with that.
Brian,
So is this a 12-foot variance, or is this a 22-foot variance? Because we're asking a 12-foot setback plus a 10-foot for the back.
Township has a square
Put
foot
it down.
variance, correct? This is
Minimum
me?
800 square feet.
Minimum of 800 square foot, but this exceeds that. It is a 12-foot front yard setback or 12-foot
Rear.
12-foot reduction from the rear yard setback. No front yard setback. If I said that earlier, I misspoke.
But there's also a 10-foot mentioned for the deck, if I'm looking at this correctly in the whole parcel.
Our township building director, I asked that question at the beginning because there was a statement from the applicant that was submitted. In those, the natural feature setback is an administrative review that the building department will look at. And the deck, Brian, if I'm saying it, go ahead.
It's allowed to protrude into the rear by 10 feet.
So there's no setback required, or no
Additional variance. for
no
that.
additional variance or deviation. Does that answer?
My only concern is that, is this with the location of the septic field and being the fact that we have an existing community well right now, is this going to be safe? And what happens if, being the fact this house is so close to our community pump house with the septic field, what happens if the septic field leaks into our community well? You have that whole, our entire neighborhood, I believe including Heather Lakes, is supplied by our pump house.
Yeah, that's
One minor mistake, and
it's a fair question. Oakland County is in charge of septic fields. The applicants have told us tonight that they've submitted permits. Those permits, it sounds like they have not heard back from Oakland County. So when you build a house, there's so many different steps and so many different entities that have to sign off on it. We're looking tonight at that rear yard variance request, but certainly you're correct that Oakland County will review it, will review the location of it, the distance from the pump house, and will make a determination whether or not it'll issue a permit for a septic field at this property.
Mr. Epic,
Jim?
the drawing shows a 200-foot isolation from the community well, and the septic field is probably an additional 50 feet outside of that. So it is outside the isolation required by the well.
Typical isolation.
Yes. 200-foot radius around the well.
Mike, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I guess my other, I mean, again, it won't be able to be answered by you guys, but I mean, like, if you drive down Clace, especially right in the location of where that house is being built, and, you know, it's across from my house and across from his property, the road is in horrible shape. Who's gonna be responsible for repairing it with even more added commercial construction?
I don't know the status of your road's
believe it's a public
ownership.
road.
I'm sorry?
I believe it's a public road.
Yeah,
It's
it's
terrible.
County.
Yeah, it's Oakland County. Road
So is the
commission.
county gonna be responsible for repairing the road?
Yeah, it sounds like it's a county road, so certainly that's a fair question to ask the county.
I mean, I could barely pull a trailer down it now as it is. I mean, I would just hope that there's more of a plan to fix this should they cause damage, should that, you know, additional commercial, when commercial vehicles are driven down it, near it.
Brian, what's the township's oversight during construction projects as it relates to commercial traffic and dozers and so things forth like that come up and down the?
Well, once it's an active construction site, you can have those types of equipment on the site itself, so, because they're used for the construction. But otherwise, you can't store commercial vehicles or equipment on a piece of property.
I agree.
But, you know, we have really no say in what happens on a county road in terms of construction traffic.
Well, every house in that subdivision that was built had cement trucks, had excavators, had dozers, had lumber delivery trucks. Just because they're the last house to be built, doesn't mean you treat them any differently than any other person that built on that road.
Correct. I mean, somebody could be building a new deck or putting a new roof on and have shingles delivered, you know, with a high-low and all of that type of activity. So I mean, there's nothing really we can do to stop that.
But your point is well taken. It's a county road, and in terms of long-term maintenance or repair, those types of things, it's certainly something the homeowners can talk to the county about. Maybe they already are.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anybody else online that has questions or comments regarding our second case?
Yeah, my last question follows this is, I mean, do you guys have control based on like, you know, like the amount of vegetation that's removed that has to be left there? Do you guys have control over that, or they have to leave X amount to make sure that it adheres?
The zoning board does not have control over that. Brian, do you want to give us an overview of the township's
Yeah,
policies?
so this property has what's called a natural feature setback. It's a 25-foot buffer to the wetlands. You're allowed to maintain that or clear it. You just cannot remove stumps or go through there with a brush hog it, and you cannot regrade it. So that's what the limitations are in the 25-foot natural feature setback. Obviously, you cannot disturb wetlands.
So the wetlands, and there's quite a bit of wetland on this property, those wetlands are required to be maintained just as they are. There's a 25-foot from the edge of the wetlands in, and you just explained the activities that can happen in there and that have to stay in there.
Yeah, and the wetland's likely a regulated wetland because of its proximity to water bodies and so forth. So I imagine Eagle would, if there was gonna be any disturbance of the wetland, Eagle would be involved at the state level.
Trees and what might become the front yard where the septic field is, does the township have any restrictions on those trees? No restrictions, okay. Thanks.
One further question is, so I'm looking at this right now, and he's requesting 2 retaining walls. I mean, on the left and the right side of the home. is this unique to looking at this right now? This kind of looks very unique to this property alone versus the rest of the subdivision as it is. I mean, it's like we're granting special circumstances that, you know, granted, I mean, we have neighbors that live on the lake, maybe they wanted to build their home much closer to the water, but they couldn't, and maybe they couldn't get a variance. So now we're giving him, you know, special privileges because he's got this one little unique piece. Well, what if there's someone who wanted to build their home 30, 40 years ago, much closer to the lake, but they couldn't? So why are we giving special privileges now?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Mike, and as we said with the previous case, this zoning board looks at each individual lot individually, each circumstance differently. If someone comes yesterday or today or tomorrow at other lots, those will be looked at just as objectively as each other lot. So the zoning board doesn't set precedent. What may have happened in the past or what might happen in the future is really irrelevant to this case tonight and the facts that we've looked at. But appreciate your questions tonight, you know, the board will continue to ask for public comment, and then we'll make a decision tonight. Thank you. Anybody else online that has a question? Anybody in the room that has a question or comment? We'll close the public comment at this point. Gentlemen, are there any additional questions? Thoughts? We're asking for, being asked to consider a 12-foot reduction in rear yard setback.
If there's no further questions, I'll try a motion on this one too, see where we go. I'll make a motion in case 24-007, Chris Jones petitioner requesting a 12-foot rear yard setback variance from section 4.06D, table 4.06, in order to construct a new home. I motion that we approve the request, citing the unusual shape of the lot, and then most of the area of that unusual shaped lot are covered by wetlands. Conditions on the approval would be obviously final septic approval from the county and placement verification of the home, of the footings.
I'll support.
We have a motion and we have support. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Brian, if we could have a roll call, please.
Mr. Epping?
Yes.
Mr. Galley?
Yes.
Mr. Charles?
Yes.
Mr. Zurich?
Yes.
Mr. Auger?
Yes.
Great. Good luck.
Thank you.
You're now into the steps of approval if you continue to work with the building department and the township and obviously the county as well. And good luck to you.
All right, thank you.
All right, moving on to our third case tonight, case number 24-008, Sean McGinnis, petitioner, requesting a variance from section 5.04A in order to construct an accessory structure in the front yard of a home on the east side of Ortonville Road, south of Oak Hill Road. And what is being listed here, I think there's a number of parcels, or maybe they've already been combined, but we've advertised it as parcel number 0805200 025 in the R1R rural residential section of our community. Good evening.
Hello. So my name is Sean McGinnis. I'm moving into the community. I currently live in Royal Oak.
Terrific.
Okay. So the background with this property, I bought this property. It's 13 acres, just under smidge 13 acres, 2.5 years ago, and with full intention of building a single-family home. And, you know, definitely at least one garage. And in order to support the activities that I want to do with this 13 acres, I want an additional accessory structure. So the variance really has to do with this additional accessory structure, where I want to park a pretty heavy piece of equipment, tractor, 65 horsepower, all the attachments you would need to 10 to 13 acres. Including, you know, backhoe, flail mower, these types of things, okay? So the primary objective when looking at the site is I'm trying to accomplish essentially two things, okay? Which is get as far back, the house side, get as far back from Ortonville Road as I can. And that has to do with noise pollution, 15th Street Bar and Grill. If you've ever traveled this road during rush hour, it's a steady beat of cars, right? It's probably, I guesstimate, about 50 cars every 20 seconds, right? So it's a steady drumbeat of cars like you're living by a highway. And so I want to get as far back away from that street noise as possible, as well as the tavern, right? That's about, I would guess 400 yards away, okay? So that said, trying to get away from the road as far as possible, that puts me in a position where I'm dealing with some topography that's, it's kind of difficult to manage, right? So there's elevation change. There's really almost three if you think about it. There's kind of a very top of the hill, okay? And then where I have the house site, there's an elevation change from the very top of this hill down to the house site, about 10 feet, okay? And then where the house is itself is a hill, and it runs in all three directions, right? So from the south corner of that, from the house site down to where it terminates, that's about a 6-foot elevation change. And then beyond that, as you keep going, it drops off further. And you can read those numbers there by the topography. I know it's hard to see because it's small, but it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, that said, I'm trying to get back as far as I can. That puts me in a position where I'm dealing with this topography. And I want to leave as small of a footprint as I can for budgetary purposes, for retaining the character of the land, et cetera. Do you have any questions about that?
I do. So again, the variance really, our ordinance requires that any accessory structure not be in front of the primary home.
Mm-hmm.
In all of our properties, we have setback lines. We've talked a lot about setback lines tonight. So typically, we have a front setback line.
Mm-hmm.
In an awful lot of cases, like in some of the prior cases tonight where lots are in smaller lots, more subdivision-style lots, it's more typical that the home is up closer to the front street.
Mm.
And if there's an accessory structure, it typically can either be next to or behind the primary structure. In this case, you've got a large piece of property, a beautiful piece of property. For many reasons, it makes sense that you might want to build a home further back. But really what that then does is, even though it's a large piece of property, if you want to build an accessory structure, almost by default, because your home is not towards the front of the property, the accessory structure falls in front of your home, and therefore a variance is requested. I've got a couple questions just as it relates to the tractor building, so you're building a home, you're building a garage more closely associated with the home, and then you're building what's listed as kind of a second garage closer to Ortonville Road. You mentioned kind of heavy equipment. Is it a commercial use, or is that simply to maintain your property?
Yeah, well, it's not commercial use. That's not my line of work. I wouldn't be using it to kind of generate revenue or anything like that. So no, it's a bigger than a lawnmower.
So you're not running a business out of these?
No. The goal for me is, so if I buy this equipment and I tend to this 13 acres myself, even during the building process, so for example, I can finish that driveway myself if I order the gravel and just grade it myself.
I get it, I was just trying to understand the motive of whether or not it's gonna be a commercial business where we
No,
would
no.
expect trucks
No.
going in and out or additional equipment coming and going and so forth, so you've said that that won't have. It looks as though the Ford garage, which is fairly good size, has a septic tank in it and it goes over to the septic field.
Mhm.
Are there gonna be living quarters, kitchens, bedrooms, closet? What's gonna happen in that building?
No, so my intention, my vision moving forward would be kind of like, a hobby farm, basically. You know, it's not gonna be, some commercial farm type deal. I know a lot of folks in the area have talked about, you know, pretty benign stuff, like chicken coops. There was a big debate about chicken coops and, what kind of material you should, all this kind of nonsense, right? But my vision really is some level of self-sustainability. So a big garden, fruit trees, you know, things like this, probably a chicken coop.
Yeah.
I have that in my head. Some beekeeping. So this, where this garage structure is, where I want to keep this tractor, in my head, that's where also I'm going to be planting, you know, these garden elements and trees and things like this. So I want a place to really kind of harvest that material, bring it into a safe structure, clean it, can it, process it.
So there's gonna be plumbing in there, there may be a restroom in there, but there's not gonna be bedrooms, it's not gonna
No.
be an in-law suite or
No,
for
no.
rent type
No.
residential structure.
That's not my concept, no.
But to be clear, it's not gonna, you're not proposing that or wouldn't propose that in the
No.
future? Okay,
No.
all right. I appreciate that.
Is there going to be a restroom in there?
Indeed, yes.
How does the building department view that?
It's perfectly allowed.
In an auxiliary garage?
Yeah, so a restroom, slop sinks to clean vegetables and whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, like,
Typical.
in my fantasy world, I'm gonna be in that garage more than I'm gonna be in the house.
Sounds lovely.
Yeah,
We have a few other properties
That being
in
the
town.
case,
that-
why isn't it closer to the house?
yeah, well, so if you, I don't know, Brian.
It's a
if you
long
could-
ways away.
It is. So I'm splitting the baby a little bit, right? So in my future state, where I want to put this garden area, it's really more closer to that location. And what you're not seeing there is really a line of trees. So if you pull up like the satellite video or the picture of what it looks like. Yeah, so if you, well, I don't know if you can tell. May I walk over and kind of point out what I'm?
Please.
All right.
Is that overhead an accurate representation of the parcel? Or no? Is that complete?
So
Yeah, well, that's just one of the
He's
parcels.
got,
Those are
he's
all-
got
He will
five
be
different
con-
parcels.
They're all combined.
Because I keep looking at
They
the
will
overhead.
be.
and I
They
keep
will be
getting-
combined.
I keep getting confused by looking at the overhead.
There's-
Yeah, they
there's
will be
five different
combined.
parcels.
All the
haven't
parcels
been-
have been combined.
Okay.
So,
Not yet.
if you can make it out okay, where I want this kind of tractor barn, it's really just a three-stall garage, but it's located between this tree and there's another tree here. And I'm trying to sit it right in there where it's already level and it's clear and that kind of thing. If I try to move it back further and keep this driveway section pretty much just the way it is, then I'm bumping up against this tree line. And I'd rather not.
Right.
Keep the trees.
Appreciate it. Any other questions or thoughts, Brian?
So we're looking at 2.6, 2.5, and 2.4, basically.
So, yeah, there's multiple parcels, they haven't been combined yet, that's why this is the current,
Yeah.
data from the county.
Ken?
Well, just talking a little bit out loud, a lot of people in the future lop off a section and sell it, right, and develop another house. And I guess I don't foresee a problem with somebody in the future doing that. Does anybody see an issue popping up because of the accessory structure in front of the current house? What might or might not happen in the future, I guess? Then when it gets resplit, you have to look at it from the township, right? So
Yeah.
rules have to be followed.
There have to be setbacks.
Really the only, you could lop off part of 2-4.
If I remember correctly, there's some serious soil conditions here.
There, to the north, this was
Yeah.
under a consent judgment in the eighties,
Yeah,
to be a commercial building, like commercial strip center.
Hmm.
That never materialized,
Yeah.
because of what's north of there, which is significant amount of wetlands.
All my neighbors, you know, when I bought the property, their deepest, darkest fear was, holy crap, he's gonna mow down all these trees and he's gonna put a strip mall in. The fact is, you can't. It's so impractical. Between the right-of-way of South Ortonville Road and the elevation change in those woods and the wetlands, the proposition is ridiculous to even think it.
Not to mention it's not zoned or master planned for commercial.
Right.
So I'm trying to do the opposite. I want to combine them all. I want to keep it more or less exactly the way it is.
Alan?
Well, if anybody visited the site, I just drove off of M15 to about where your driveway takes the first left
Uh-huh.
to twist. And I visualized your site plan, and this structure is gonna be right out in the open. I
No, sir.
appreciate the
Disagree
elevation.
100%, but go ahead.
Hang on. Keep going, Alan.
You know, you've got the two trees there,
Yeah.
but the rest of this field is all open.
Mhm.
Your drive going around the north side of it,
Yeah.
and you're asking, we've got two garages that you're asking to be set in front of the structure, because you want to push the house back as far as you can.
Mhm.
Because the house, the garage close to your house is still in front of the house.
Right.
So you've got two garages that are a problem.
Not quite, but
That
on where you draw the
southwest
line.
corner is kind of,
yeah, that's the plane, yeah.
is it, so you,
But your point's taken, so.
okay. Not realizing that, I assumed that you had two of them going.
No, yeah, fair enough.
It's a great piece of property. I like what you're doing with it. You're setting it back. The problem I wanna, see that structure shielded or something from the road. I know down the road, we've allowed that horse barn to go in,
Right.
in front of that
Yeah,
person's
yeah.
house.
Yeah.
A year, 2-3 years ago. So I realize that there's, some precedents out there with that acreage.
Well, so if I may.
Hang on,
uh,
just, Alan, was that the completion, or do you want to have feedback?
That's basically it. Shielding that, if we did allow it, I'd prefer that we have some shielding around it, either some arborvitaes or pine trees that are gonna shield it so you don't, see it from the road in your activities there.
Uh-huh.
Which will help protect it for security.
Yeah.
But I like it being that far back, at least. But I don't wanna see if we approve anything, any more structures going on that property without ZBA approval.
Mr. McGinnis, before we get back to you, Brian, is there any, so we're granting or considering a variance to permit a building in the front, in the front yard of a home. We're not defining the distance in front of the front home. Now, I suppose in our motion, we could tie it to this site plan.
Correct,
And maybe that's the best way to do it, but theoretically, if we didn't do that, they could build it, right up to the road. So, at least if we do consider it, we should tie it to something.
Yeah, in the past, that's what you've done in the past, so.
Let me break here. We're going to open up to public comment. Is there anybody online that would like to speak on our third case on Ortonville Road today? No one online? Anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this case? Sir? You could just let him take the lectern.
Go ahead. My name is Paul McConaughey. I live at 10261 Rama Court. I guess hopefully I only have one question. Where is this property located? It's hard to determine. Is it south of the horse farm or north of the horse farm?
North.
North.
There's a concrete temporary driveway
Yeah.
off of M15. That's
Yeah, I
just-
can see it from my
that's-
house.
That's the property.
We have an aerial here that gives it a little bit of perspective.
Oh, I don't need an aerial. I can see it from my house. I'm right at the end of Rama Court, so I can see, well, I didn't used to be able to see M15, but now I can because part of that hill got shaved off.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, it's a problem for me. I got some disabled kids, and that noise level has increased quite a bit, and that's disturbed them, so.
I understand that. Certainly, building a home, and sounds like ultimately, you know, a nice country farm garden might help some of that situation.
Yeah, I guess my biggest concern is probably not related to his, I like what he's doing.
Yeah.
But is that sound barrier went away. So I don't know if that's coming back, or, I mean, maybe what he's building will block that a little bit.
What grading was done to lower a hill?
None.
Actually,
I rented a tractor, mowed the grass.
Come on back up to the microphone, just so we get you on the microphone.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll say that again. I appreciate the question. So no grading was done. What I did was rent a tractor. I mowed, you know, the open land, and I tilled it. It's not graded at all. It's not.
Okay.
I will point out to the ZBA that MDOT went through and did their clearing of M15 in the right of way, similar to what they did on I-75, so that could contribute, because they did cut a lot of vegetation along M15.
Probably where that noise level increased.
They did do that, and if I could maybe, along with Alan's comment about the trees and getting some screening and covering, moving forward in time, as budget allows, my ultimate plan with landscaping and planting trees, the fruit trees, the cherry blossom trees, this kind of thing, along the north edge of where the driveway is, I intend to plant, you know, large kind of fir trees that would grow up to, say, at least 25 feet in height, for the same reason, for the same exact reason, for the aesthetics and for the privacy screen, because you really can see the traffic and the traffic lights and whatnot during the winter and fall through even the existing tree line.
I appreciate that in trying to keep focused on the request at hand tonight. We have in other cases, Alan, you've pointed out, specific to the structure that's being requested, asked for additional landscaping. I think someone built an accessory structure on Sashaba and put up some pine trees to block that structure. So that makes sense. Obviously, there's probably a grander plan for the property in general, but specific to this in terms of timing and those type of things, we may want to consider that. Is there any other questions up here with the board?
The plans that you submitted here, the elevations, that is the plan, or you know, is it approved in your mind? You're gonna build it like this?
No, exactly, yeah.
You like flat roofs?
Excuse
You
me?
like flat roofs?
I do. Yeah, I grew up on a farm. That's how my grandfather built his place, and it's what's in my head.
That feels good, yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm all set, I think it's.
Want to give it a whack, Ken? Give Brian a break?
Well, talking internally, I mean, do we want to try and say 5 plants above 6 foot, or how should we, to cover?
Probably makes
it's
sense to
a-
quantify it if that's something that makes sense.
And it would be the south and west views, really. North is his woods.
Is covered already?
North is his woods going north.
Right. Okay, in the case of 24-8, Mr. McGinnis is petitioning to get a variance from section 5.04A in order to, number 4, in order to construct an accessory structure in front of his primary residence, his home, off of Ortonville Road, just south of Oakville Road. I would like to say, given the request of the shape of the lot and his intended use and the size of the property would allow such a variance, but we would request that the westward view from Ortonville Road and maybe the southward view from the open plain be covered with vegetation that's 6 foot or higher, that's green year-round.
Do you have a quantity?
Well, given the orientation of it, maybe 4 on the south side and 6 on the, I'm sorry, did I say the west side?
West side.
4 on the west side and 6 on the south side,
Given the length of the building.
given the length of the building's longer.
And the distance off the road.
Oh, yes, good point, and that the location of this annex or this garage is per the drawing that's submitted in today's meeting.
Okay.
I'll support it if you'd add that no other structures be permitted in the front of the house without zoning board approval.
That's a good point, that this approval is only for the said structure and no other future structures.
Support that.
I'll support that.
So we have a motion and support. Just to roughly summarize, we have a motion to approve the variance request based on the plans that were presented and submitted to the township, that the architecture and the various comments that were made throughout the evening would run with that approval, that there would be a total of 10 evergreen plants of some sort with a minimum height of 6 foot at the time of installation that would be placed. And if I may, I guess we'll have to ask for support and amendment, but all of our variances, we like to, I was gonna ask for a placement verification. In this case, it isn't, I don't think that would be necessary because it's per the plan that's been submitted. So, Brian, is that a fair summary of your notes?
Yes, that's what I have.
Great. So we have a motion and we have support. Any discussion on the motion? Brian, if we could have a roll call, please.
Mr. Galley,
Yes.
Mr. Charles,
Yes.
Mr. Zurich,
Yes.
Mr. Auger,
Yes.
Mr. Epping.
Yes.
Short recess.
Yes. Mr. McGinnis, congratulations. Again, just like the others, please continue to work with the township, with the building department, the planning department, and all the permits.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're just going to take a quick recess here, a 5-minute recess or so. If anybody needs a glass of water or anything, please do so.
I'm retired.
All right, thank you. We'll bring our meeting back to order. We'll call our last case of the evening, case number 24-009. Michael Vigunas, please correct me on that. Petitioner requesting a 25-foot side yard variance from section 5.06A in our ordinance to construct a new accessory structure at 5417 Clarkston Road, which is parcel number 0814376-007, which is also in the R1R rural residential. So again, it's a 25-foot side yard variance in this zoning district. The ordinance requires 50, so we're asking for a 50% relief in that side yard. Good evening.
Good evening. Michael Vaichunas, 5417 Clarkston Road. 46 years Waterford resident. So we're looking forward, my wife and daughter looking forward to moving to Clarkston. Hopefully the daughter will be going to Bailey Elementary soon. And very excited to come to Clarkston, both the neighbors here. Yeah, so we're asking for 25-foot variance. As you guys know, the lot, it's funny, up in Gaylord, they call it bowling alley lots. So when I was first looking at the property, looking at the property 2 years ago, I think there was a variance already issued, and then I was not aware, if there was the variance issued, I was not aware that it expired. So that's what we're here for today is we're looking to put an accessory building behind the house, and we're asking for the 25 feet for panoramic view. As we all know, it's absolutely gorgeous over there. So if we can keep the accessory building off to the side, it just keeps our view wonderful. Also, the opportunity, if we'd ever love to put in, you know, a pool, we can call it a tennis court, we can, you know, garden. So basically, we're just asking for 25 feet variance. Both neighbors are here. After discussing with the neighbor a couple times on panoramic view, one thing that I have not brought to the zoning board yet, and we'll base it on this meeting, is to be ultimate consideration for the neighbors is where the pole barn is back, there's a big swale back there and it's all wetlands. And looking at the neighbor's house, and after talking with them, they do have a patio there. So they would have view right of the barn. So one thing, I do have the site plan, I can give it to you, but in consideration of the neighbor to the west, we are still asking for the 25-foot variance, but I'm willing to move the accessory building 25 feet forward, which based on panoramic view, I think it would be directly out of their view. So
When
just
you-
being flexible in support of the neighbor.
When you say forward, do you mean north, closer
Yes.
to your house?
Yes, and I have that site plan if you guys want to see that. Yeah, so that's it. We're just, you know, it's an accessory building, it's a hobby shop. We're pretty clean, petite. We want to keep our hobbies indoor and not, you know, flood our yard with
So what type
outside
of,
toys.
what type of construction would that, a pole barn,
You know what, that's gonna be a stick-built garage. And it's gonna match the house 100%. 2x6 construction.
sided?
Yup, fully sided. Even cement, we're gonna call it cement block on the front to match the house. Brian approved already the size, also, you know, in consideration the height as well. It's gonna be low, the mean height also from the road, Clarkson Road to the barn, I believe. It's a 10-foot drop. By the way, not that this is on here, but for Clarkson Road purposes, you know, we will be putting some pine trees out front for, you know, some privacy on Clarkson Road. Also, you know, maybe some sound deadening, but just more landscape, because it's the whole lot's clean. You know, there's no trees except for the east side of the property, and then, of course, the rear, but.
Okay. All right, yeah, and I apologize, I did look at them earlier, I'd forgotten that you had submitted elevations of the architecture of all four sides. Looks like a nice building. Brian, for history, I believe, again, this property was here maybe a year or two ago. I think it was a different applicant at that time, a different home. This board did grant a variance for the same side, for the western side.
It was, but it was for the house, because if you recall, he was a car collector and he had very
It's a
large.
circulation
Garages,
issue.
Yeah, he had a very large, below grade garage. And the home actually, that forced the home to be in the setback, not an accessory structure.
Right, it was the primary home at that case.
It was, and it
just
was set back basically where the barn, a little bit past the barn towards the wetlands, so.
So again, that was for the primary structure, that variance expired because the home was never built.
Yeah, and even if it were still good, this is a totally different application.
Sure.
Or totally different as it relates to a variance. so.
It's an accessory structure as opposed to a primary structure.
Correct.
It's a different architecture,
Yeah.
different than what the board looked at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Brian, what are your thoughts, questions?
I guess my first reaction is, it looks like he's dealt with the neighbors, and obviously we'll hear from public comment if that's the case. The direct neighbor affected, if they were open to his proposal. If you moved it into the middle of the yard, you're dealing with slopes and everything. And I guess I'll reserve till we do public comment.
All right. Gentlemen, would you like to hear public
Yeah,
comment
I
before
think-
we go?
I would.
Ken, go ahead.
I just wanna make sure, the doors that you're putting on this are 14 foot tall? So we're okay on the peak of this, height of this structure? It's
16 feet.
Go through
To the midpoint of the roof.
Midpoint of the roof.
What's midpoint of the roof?
The height would be about, this is where the township calls the line.
They actually,
2 feet above the door.
the drawing has it called out, so.
Right here.
So, as shown on the drawing, it has to be lowered.
No, the township ordinance, like most communities, measure the height of a roof to the midpoint of the gable.
Oh, okay.
As opposed to what
The peak.
a typical person would consider.
That was just redone about 10, 12 years ago.
Depending on the pitch you do of your roof, it can raise and lower the peak.
Okay.
So it's actually better if the peak's higher on a steeper pitch, and just more aesthetically pleasing.
And we actually look at it, average grade too. So,
Say, average grade?
yeah, so.
Oh,
the
along
four-
the,
The 4
the whole,
points,
okay.
that'll determine the floor elevation, so to speak, or where that 16 foot's measured from.
Okay, off topic, but why do you want a 14 foot door?
We have a boat and opportunity for a travel trailer.
Okay.
And our boat has a big arch. But the doors will be, very nice doors. They'll be matching the house doors,
Okay, I like the idea of the neighbor asking to pull it forward to keep their view.
Well,
s-
I didn't even propose that to them yet, so
Oh.
I'm just saying that I'm open-minded, that I'm
Ah,
very accommodating to my new
Okay.
neighbors that I respect highly and can't wait
Okay.
to live. So all I'm just saying is that I will show that, to them,
Oh.
that I'm just being respectful, that I'm trying to
trying to
accommodate.
listen.
Option to move it forward.
Yeah, to move it forward, that, because it is on their garage side of the house. So the garage side, and they have a patio, so all I'm just getting at is that out of respect for the neighbor, that we would move it forward another 25 feet, which I think would even be a better view. I don't think it would be in their direct view, looking at the backyard, beautiful view, sitting on their patio where their pool is. It would be more out of their view, 25 feet forward, is all I'm saying, but I still would like the
Okay.
25 feet side variance.
Thank you. Why don't we pause here, we'll open it up for public comment, and we'll bring it back to the board. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this case? Sir?
My name is Khodadad Yakubi,
Good evening.
and we live on 5425 Clarkson west of them. And first of all, I welcome them to the neighborhood. And I am looking forward to live side by side with them with a good term. Yes, and we are disagree about the variant. The reason that we bought our house because of the variant, because we didn't want another building close to us. And the view of the building that from our porch, from our sunroom, when he was building if he's going to build the barn, is going to be right in our view. So that's one thing. The other thing will be very close to us. But the reason that we came here, because of further buildings, between the houses, the distance. That's what we came. And we love our house, we love the township, we love our neighborhood, and we love them. So as that variant, we really respect the variance, and we want to stay with that distance, and nothing against them, and we welcome them. And the reason that, yes, I appreciate that he said that he is going to move 25 feet forward, but even if it's 25 feet forward, but still he could not build, that close to the pine tree, because it's going to interfere. There are like circle pine tree there, all around.
Right.
So it would interfere with the pine tree. But yes, if he's going to move forward, already he raised about 4 feet the floor. You raise it up. My well is right there, right on the right hand side.
Okay.
So it's going to be high already 16 feet, and plus 4 feet is that he raised already is 20 feet. So, and it's going to be long barn,
Right,
So,
60 foot.
Yeah, it's very long. So it's like a commercial garage, and that's what the other ones wants to do, Gordon. So he wants to build a big garage. He wants 2 feet or something very, and so that's, we are disagree over that.
Okay. So to summarize, and I appreciate your comments, is you bought your home understanding the setbacks and
yeah,
and
the setback.
enjoy those.
Right.
I
That's
appreciate
only-
that.
And all the houses over there we got that setback, In the long run, it's good for him too, because if he want to sell the house, in the long run, so it's not going to be close to my garage and close to my porch or my living room corner,
Right. Okay.
And nothing against you, Mike. No.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that'd like to speak on this case? No one else? Is there anybody else online? Doesn't look like it, Brian?
No.
All right. Sir, please.
Yeah, he got 200 feet, wide, and we got. So 50 feet variant from right and 50 from left. So still he got 100 feet, And then if he get 50 feet even wide, still he got 50 feet too, for the view. I don't want to,
There's 100 foot in the middle that's
In the middle,
within
yeah.
that building
Right.
envelope. Thank you.
Can I
J-
add one more thing?
Come on, please.
So, just like you said, so the structure, we'll call it 52 feet with the lean-to. So we follow the ordinance, right, of 50 feet. He's right, it would put us right in the middle of our property, so 50 feet plus the 52-foot structure. So it just really suffers our panoramic view of the gorgeous, lots
Right.
and, pine knob and deer, and plus if we did want to put a pool in it, it would really deteriorate the panoramic, the, view on it. Also, one thing, with these guys, and they're probably grandfathered, it doesn't probably pertain to my case, but, I have a site plan that they have 3 accessory buildings as well, on their property, and it looks like it's on the 25-foot based on my engineering company.
Yeah.
Now, they probably are grandfathered in, but I'm just, if it is grandfathered, if they did get a variance, I'm just asking for fairness.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Brian, are we aware of any other variances? And I know you haven't
I
researched
haven't
this.
researched that one yet,
Okay.
but, more than likely, due to the age of the home, predates our ordinance.
Predates the ordinance. Okay, thank you.
It was built in 65.
And it's really
1965.
small, the one is 12 by 10 by 8.
It's fine. They're existing structures that predate the ordinance. Thank you. Thank you for that. Jim?
There's a 19-foot dimension at the northwest corner of this building. What is it?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
There's a 19, could be .9 foot dimension at the northwest corner of the building to the property line.
As opposed to 25.
It's right here.
The arrow's not going to the property
Right.
line though,
Yeah.
which is odd.
It's not.
Yeah, the arrow doesn't go to the property line.
Right, it's not that clear where it is marked.
I'm not sure if that's to the swale or the grade line.
There's no, well, that's a slope.
Yeah.
It's the middle of a slope.
Oh, one thing to add to, as they commented it, so when we originally had our site plan there, if you see the barn grade, does that say 1,063?
61.
1,061, so yeah, moving it forward is, it's 2 feet, you know what I mean, a little bit higher. But again, that could change, but in terms of what you're saying, the arrows, it is 25 feet, but yeah, that is a swale to keep the water pushing back because,
That's not a swale. 68, 66, 64, it's a slope.
no, I'm just saying the squiggly line with the arrow.
I think the
We're
intent's
just
to keep the
questioning.
Oh, yeah, I
stormwater-
see that.
This
But
line
that-
right here says 19.9, and we're just trying to determine if this is drawn at
Yeah.
20 foot as opposed to 25 foot.
Oh, gotcha, yeah. I mean, I can hand you this site plan, I got both of them, but-
I scaled it and it's 25,
Just kind of the
both corners. Okay, I'm not sure what the 19.9, if that points
can't
to
file
the
it in,
grade mark or not.
Okay. Jim, any other questions?
Does, quick one, if you were doing a new pool, does it have to meet the side yard setback?
Yes?
Yes.
So the
No,
neighboring
actually, it doesn't, but, it can be in the side yard, it could be 10 feet from the property lines, I believe. So,
Because it has a foundation, built-in pool.
okay.
That's interesting.
Ellen?
So are we to assume that if we approve this, it's actually gonna get built 25 feet farther to the north?
Yes, sir.
You'd make that as part of your motion. Otherwise, we'll never be able to verify that.
You would have to screen that side too.
Right now, it shows a dimension from the back of the house, 100 foot to the front corner of the proposed pole barn. So if we were to make that part of the motion, we obviously could change that to 75 foot or another dimension.
And I have that site plan if you guys want to see that. It's now 75 feet from the back of the house. And the site plan has all the elevations on it. Finished site plan if we were to get this approved in the motion.
Alan, Ken, Brian, Jim, any other thoughts, questions?
No.
Also, if you guys look at I don't know if I can speak.
Please.
If you look at the elevation where the neighbor lives, they're pretty high up, even though the barn did move up, from 160. Original site plan, was it again 161 to 163, 164, but their elevation where their house is it's still quite a bit higher. As you can see, that's a big slope.
15 foot or more?
Yeah, 15 feet, yeah.
Okay.
No, explain, I know the grade differences. What's your construction of the west wall of the barn gonna be? Because your grade is coming up on top of the wall of the barn?
No.
You're gonna have a retainer wall there?
That's a great
as part
question.
of the-
So, we were building a 4-foot wall for the accessory building on the west side and the back, but now moving it, and still moving it 25 feet forward, we're still gonna build a 4-foot wall, west wall, back wall, but now we won't have to do the retainer wall, as you can see where the rock is right there, the stone. We were gonna have to build a retainer wall there or cement that, but now moving it 25 feet forward, Keith Engineering, we don't have to have that retainer wall. But yes, the building will have a 4-foot wall as part of the construction on the
So
west
like
side
a
and the south
4-foot
side.
Solid block knee wall?
It's gonna be a poured wall.
Okay, 4-foot pour wall. Gotcha.
So you're gonna slope your property down to your driveway and then flow the water to the back?
Correct.
With moving it 25 feet forward and trying to work with the neighbor on this particular problem, I don't have a problem with it.
Do we move it over a little bit closer to the center?
Well, so my thought, you know, clearly it's gonna be a beautiful building. The neighbor's home is, you know, a beautiful, wonderful place as well. I like the idea of developing the property. I appreciate the views. I know at night with Pine Knob and everything else, it truly is wonderful. But I haven't heard, you know, in other cases that we've considered over the years, you know, oftentimes we're saying, boy, there's a wetland there that, you know, no one can move. There's slopes and difficult situations in terms of slopes. So there's the hardships truly, in my opinion, are self-created. You know, they're valid from a livability point of view. I get it, but I also have to respect the underlying zoning and the neighbor's right to that underlying zoning too. And so I'm at this point can't find a hardship that isn't self-created. And so for that reason, I'm a little. I appreciate the beauty of it. Certainly understand all the things that you want to do with the property, but I think I've got to respect the underlying zoning as it relates to this and the lack of physical hardships or uniqueness of the property.
Can I ask you, on your house, what is the back part of the, we'll call it the southwest corner, what is that area of the house?
Our master bedroom?
In the southwest corner towards
Yes,
their
sir.
property?
Yes, sir. See where the two lines are going straight south on the property?
Yes.
That's our master bed. That's our master bedroom.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
Along with your thoughts, Jim, if he was to eliminate the concrete that's on the east side of this pole barn and the roof structure and stuff, he could move the building over 12 feet. Because he's obstructing his view anyway with what he's proposing there, and moving the structure, just the basic structure without any lean-to roof or anything off to the side. Just a 40 by 60 square foot frame structure. That would give him 37 feet from the
Take it
neighbor's
further.
property, which would be a,
13-foot variance?
yeah,
And moving it more forward,
yes,
take it away from the direct plane of the neighbor.
yeah.
I would support that if you screen the side too. You know, similar to what was in the last case.
I see you've got nice notes, Brian, if you'll make a motion.
Already done too, my mouth's dry.
You're really doing good.
That makes sense, but we're saying you're tracking with what the discussion has been here.
Something about not being able to have the lean-to?
Well, not necessarily not being able to have it, you certainly can still have it, but we're saying the actual structure of the building itself, the lean-to is an additional 13 foot on the east side. In one scenario, in terms of preserving the views, that a lean-to could be eliminated if the building was let's forget about the lean-to. The building could be pushed over 13 foot or greater to bring it closer to compliance. One way to do that and still preserve your views would be to eliminate that lean-to. You could keep it just as well, and it would just be 13 foot over. So some suggestions up here is our goal often is to mitigate or make if a variance is considered, how small is that variance? Could that variance be? And one suggestion here is, well, boy, we could push an additional 13 foot. So instead of 25 foot, it would be, or push a 12 foot, and it would be a 13 foot variance request, and then you could decide whether or not you still wanted that lean-to or not.
What about if we kept it as it is with the 25 feet forward and we put some pine trees up along the west side of the property?
That might also be a requirement, along with the 13-foot variance instead of the 25-foot.
Yeah. Well, it sounded, Brian, like you were motioning.
I guess I can see it. This goes forward. I'd like to make a motion, case number 24-009. Petitioner is requesting a 20-foot side yard variance from section 5.06A. What's that? 25-foot side yard variance from section 5.06A4. I would motion that we approve a 13-foot yard side setback variance. Also moving the structure from the presented plot plan to 75 feet from the rear of the house instead of the 100 feet shown. Also require screening of the west elevation to protect the neighbor's view with a minimum of 10 6-foot tall evergreen or arborvitae type vegetation, and also placement verification of the foundation. That's it.
We have a motion. Do we have support?
I'll support.
Any discussion on the motion? Brian, if we could have a roll call, please.
Mr. Charles?
Yes.
Mr. Zurich?
Yes.
Mr. Auger?
Yes.
Mr. Epping?
No.
And Mr. Galley?
Yes.
Congratulations, your not necessarily your application, but your variance has been granted, 13 foot rather than 25 foot, with the shift to the 25 foot closer to Clarkston Road, and then an evergreen screen containing 10 evergreens, 6 foot or greater. So again, congratulations on that. We'll ask you to continue to work with the township, the building department. What was really important, and you probably did it with your foundation now, is that placement verification. So when those corners are set, we'll need those verified that it is in fact, no, what's our
Yeah.
math there? 32 foot
Yeah,
from the
it's
property line?
intent of what the variance approval was. That's what it proves, placement verification.
So instead of 50 feet, now it's 32 feet.
Correct.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's 32 feet? I didn't get that.
So a variance was granted. The applicant asked for 25 foot. The variance, or the standard ordinance is 50 foot. The applicant asked for 25 foot. The board determined to grant a less easement of 12 feet. I'm sorry, 13 foot. 13 foot, so the barn now is permitted to be built 32 foot. 37?
Yeah.
I'm making this up as I go.
You got it.
37 feet, so that instead of 50 foot, it'll be no closer than 37 foot from your property line, and it'll be pulled forward 25 foot closer to Clarkston Road. All right,
27 feet from the border, 25 feet forward to Clarkston.
correct, 37 and 25. All right, thank you, guys,
Thank you.
appreciate it. Sorry for my on-the-fly bad math there. Thanks for correcting me. All right, that concludes our new business portion. We have minutes in our packet, regular meeting of April 3rd, 2024 are there. I think we've had an opportunity to review those. Are any changes, corrections, or motion to approve the last minutes?
With nobody speaking up, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the April 3rd, 2024 meeting as submitted.
We have a motion, I support. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Motion, our minutes are approved. Next business item is discussion. Meeting is still open. Do we have any discussion points? Guys, we're still having our meeting now. If you don't mind, just, we're almost done. That's okay. You can stay or go, but we just need to finish our business here. Any discussion?
There was a point, but I've already forgot it.
Seeing no discussion,
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 8:04.
I second.
support, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.